Guys, welcome to our next tutorial. In this Photoshop tutorial, we are going to be learning how to make a photo look like a digital painting. So what you need to start off with is a portrait of some sort. This is a group portrait I grabbed off the lesson folder from one of my past students. And what we're going to do is transform it so that it looks more like a digital painting. This is the final result that you're going to be after. The kind of picture you need is basically a portrait. It can be just of one person, it can be a group portrait, but you really want to have a lot of detail in the faces, okay? And it really should be more of like a bust portrait where it's the head and shoulders. If you need to take one, you are more than welcome to do that. You could probably do it with your iPhone pretty easily and then email the picture, or you can use the nicer camera, the Nikon cameras, and do it that way, however you want to do it. Or you might already have one that you can use. So just make sure it works for this tutorial. So the first thing we want to do is maybe do some things that we've learned from past tutorials to kind of soften this up a little bit and make it a little bit more the color's a little bit more saturated and maybe blend the skin a little bit better. So as always, go to layer, duplicate layer to make a background copy. You always want to do that. And in this background copy, we're just going to do some things. You can use the magnifying glass to kind of zoom in if you need to. So I'm going to use my sponge tool to saturate some of the features like the lips and the eye color. So I'm going to go over here. Here's my burn tool. So my dodge tool, burn tool, and sponge tool are located in this little box. I'm going to click on the sponge tool. Remember, the sponge tool you can use to saturate or desaturate. I'm going to have it on saturate. You can control the flow, how much it does it, and then the brush size over here in the tool option bar. So I'm going to make it small enough. There we go. It's kind of do that. If you feel like it's not bright enough, you can always increase your flow. And again, it's really subtle, you know. Maybe make this a little bit smaller. So, you know, I'm going to pause it while I do this because I don't want to have you watch. I'll show you the finished product. But just, you know, kind of saturate the parts that you want to. Again, we don't want to make it look unrealistic, but we just kind of want to brighten the picture up a little bit. I kind of finished touching up their eye color and lip color. Now I'm going to do that filter, that Gaussian blur we did last time to kind of soften up their skin a little bit. So I'm going to make another duplicate layer. So I'm going to go up here to layer, duplicate layer, and just do another background copy. This one I'm going to add a filter to it. So I'm going to go up to filter. We've used this before, blur, and then Gaussian blur. And then you want to blur it. You're not, you know, we're going to erase most of it to reveal the most of the picture, but just kind of leave it in parts of the skin just to make it look a little bit more airbrushed. But we don't want it to look too fake either. I'm going to keep it at that point. So I'm going to hit OK. So make sure, you know, if you want, you can rename these layers. We're going to end up, for the main part of the tutorial, flattening them. So I'm not going to do that right now, but, you know, this could be your Gaussian blur, and then your background copy and your background. Here, I'll do it just to show you good habits. Or you could just put blur. So make sure you're in that layer. You're going to take your eraser tool, looks like a little eraser, and then just kind of erase parts of the picture. So I'm going to start here and just kind of bring back the background a little bit, and the hair and the clothing. And then I'll make my brush a little, maybe around the edge of the face. So again, this could take a little bit of time, so I'm going to pause it and show you the final result. But I did this. You might want to make your brush a little bit smaller, and just be careful when you're doing the facial features, when you're bringing stuff back. Oops. Remember, if you do it too much, hit edit, step backwards. And, just refine it. You also, it's almost like contouring. You just, just kind of bring back these shadows that kind of define the face a little bit. So I'm going to pause it and do these other two girls and show you the final result. I'm almost done. I just wanted to kind of show you, and you want to be subtle with this and take your time so it looks more natural. So as you can see, I kind of brought back the hair. So it is important to sort of take your time and not rush this. Bring that image back. But I, revealed the eyes. It's really important too to not cover up the shadows too much either. Sort of, so like where you see these kind of shadows, it's sort of important to bring those back as well, like around the nose and maybe the smile lines. Here, just kind of bring back her hairline a little bit more. So, just look at it and make sure, just kind of see if there are areas. You can always kind of hide it. So this is what it looked like before. Not that they have beautiful skin, but this just will make it look more like a painting when we're done. All right, so the last step is I'm going to flatten all of this. I'm going to go to Layer, Flatten Image, so all of it's combined, and then I'm just going to highlight it just a little bit or brighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, and just kind of just brighten it up just a tad bit and maybe make it a little bit more contrasty. Remember, you can use, there are numerous ways to do the adjustments. So I could, or increase the contrast and brightness. You could also go to levels, which I like, and just kind of, play around with it like that. It's a little bit more subtle. All right. So there I have this image. So what I want you guys to do, if you haven't already, is just make sure you flatten the image, okay, at this point with all your adjustments and stuff that you've done before you continue on to the next segment of the video. So when you start now with the actual tutorial where we're going to try to really add some layers to make it look like a digital painting, just make sure that you have brightened it, played with the contrast, done your saturation, done your Gaussian blur and all that before, and not have any of those layers present. Make sure you flatten it before you start, oops, this next part. I was accidentally with my eraser tool. Because if you don't, again, if you don't do it in the order I do it in, you're going to mess up and it's, you'll probably end up having to start over. So please pay attention to make sure you're following along and doing the orders like I'm doing them. All right. So we're going to, again, make a duplicate layer. So we're going to go to Layer, Duplicate Layer, and hit OK. This layer, I do want you to rename your layers, and if you didn't in the last segment, I do want you to starting now. We're going to name this one Shadows and Highlights. So double click Shadows and Highlights. Okay, once you've created that layer, make sure it's highlighted, and you are going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and then find Shadow and Highlights. Context box and with some sliders. So where the shadow slider is, you're going to just push it all the way up, okay? And then hit OK. All right. So now you're going to duplicate this layer again. If you want, you can use the key command, which is Control J. and that just automatically creates a copy of whatever layer you have highlighted. This time we're going to rename this layer Reduce Noise, which is another filter that we're going to be using. So make sure this layer is highlighted, and then you're going to go up to Filter. You're going to scroll down to Noise, and then Reduce Noise. And again, it's going to bring up another slider. So, mine's already set, but you want to move the slider all the way up to, strength 10, and then move these other sliders all the way down to 0. Okay. And then hit OK. And it's very subtle, but it's basically just, softening the image a little bit more. All right, you're going to make another copy of this layer. So you're going to make sure it's highlighted, and you're going to hit, and then what you want to do again before you do that is add the filter again. So you've done reduce noise. So go up here before you create a new layer and just go to filter and see how it says reduce noise. So it has the last filter you used. So all you have to do is click it again. And so it's going to apply the filter again, sort of double it. All right, now go, hit Control J, or you can go up to layer, duplicate layer, okay, to create another copy. This one we are going to rename Film Grain. So double click. All right. Then you're going to go up to the filter gallery, and we're going to select, you're going to go up to filter and actually select the filter gallery. And you're going to select, first of all, in here where your image window is, it shows you the effect it's going to have on your photograph. So you can see the picture. So use these plus and minuses to minimize it. I did it too much, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And then you want to make sure film grain is selected. So another filter might be selected. Usually the colored pencil one pops up. So just scroll down and select the film grain. And again, you want to make sure the grain is all the way at 0. And then these other areas, I think you kind of want to be careful, like with the highlighted shadows, because you don't want to, have too many shadows, because then it looks weird, but kind of play around with the highlighted areas a little bit. You don't want to lose too much of the shadow. I don't want it to be like an outline either. Okay, we'll try that. And then the intensity all the way up to 10. So grain all the way to 0, intensity to 10, and then this sort of play around with, like, you don't want it to be no shadows, but you don't want it too shadowy either. So maybe like 5 is probably a good one to do. And then hit OK to confirm that change. All right, so after we've done the film grain, what you want to do now is go back while you're still in this layer, film grain, and then go back up to filter, and we're going to do the reduce noise again. So just go to noise, go to filter, noise, reduce noise, and then it's probably set already to those settings, but again, make sure the strength all the way up to 10, and then all the other sliders are at 0, and then hit OK. Create another layer. So go to Control G. This one we're going to call High Pass, which is another filter that we're going to be using. So double click High Pass. All right, and then go up here and make sure that layer is highlighted. It's really easy to not be in the layer you think you are, so make sure you're keeping track of that. So high pass, go up to filter, go down to other, and then you're going to select high pass. Okay, and you kind of want to play around with the radius and pixels, so that you can sort of barely see the image. Where you have, where the shadows and sort of, where it almost looks like a drawing. So let's do that. So around 4 pixels maybe. It depends on the quality of the image that you're using with. So between 2 and 4 pixels. And hit OK. And then what you're going to do is you're going to blend that layer with the film grain layer. So to do that, make sure you're in the high pass layer. And then you're going to go to the blending mode, which is this normal. Click on the arrow and select overlay. All right, I'm going to stop at this point. There is going to be a part 2, but I just want to make sure I don't mess this up. So before you begin part 2, just double check and make sure you have these layers and make sure that you save your image the way I explained for you to do that. So again, make sure you have your background, your shadow highlights, reduce noise, film grain, high pass. After we do these layers, we're actually going to start making empty layers and doing some things in those that are a little bit different than using the filters. So when you have done this correctly, you can move on to part 2 of this tutorial. Just make sure you save it. So, go to File, Save As, and then don't save over your original picture. Go to the lesson folder and go to My Name. To go to your Photo 1 2017. And I haven't created it yet, but I will. So in whatever period you're in, there's going to be a folder called Digital Painting Portrait. And then just rename it, like Digital Painting. And then, working copy or just working. So you know that that's the one that has all your layers, and hit save. You need to save your layers, okay? So see how it's saving it as a Photoshop file? That's what you want. And then you can hit save. All right, well, stay tuned. We're almost done. Stay tuned for the next part 2 of digital painting.